Well, hi there. I'm Sandy Allnock with this month's Coloring All the Things for Ellen Hutson. Love visiting over here on this channel. And today I'm going to do something really crazy and fun. I'm going to do some Art Impressions watercolor bouquets, but I'm going to give them unique holders and containers of different sorts. You may wonder what stamp sets those are from. I will show you. First, I got out the floral and foliage stamp sets, the basic ones that I like a lot. Put them on blocks so they're ready to go, and got out some watercolor paper and some Tombow markers. This is my set of 20. It's my favorite colors, and they're available in the Ellen Hutson shop. And I got out Conductor of Light. Yes, I'm going to use these for flower vases. You can look at a lot of different stamps that you have in your collection. You might find all kinds of things that could be vases, and you just never thought of that before. So for these, I'm going to turn them upside down. I put blue and a little tiny bit of black on the outside, just so I'd have some color to work with. And I put green for the little thingies in the middle of the light bulbs. Next, I got the handful set, and I stamped one of them in dark brown and one of them in a medium brown so that I can have two handfuls. And then this one is going to be really fun. You might not think you're going to get any kind of vase out of the space set, but check this out. If you just put the marker along the edges of the body of this thing and don't do the tip and stamp it upside down, it looks just like a very, very large container. Check that out. And then I'm also going to do the same thing with the submarine. You probably never looked at that and saw it and thought that, oh, I can make it into a flower vase. Well, guess what? You can. And now I'm going to get you looking at all of your stamps in different ways to see if you have other containers, because you might, and you just might not know it. So I put color all the way around the outside edges in order to create that other large vase. Since the Tombow markers are water-based, I can take a brush, this is a silver brush, number 8, and just touch the edge of each of the stamp lines with the water and let them sort of melt out a little bit so they get kind of soft. And some of the edges will stay hard, some will stay soft, and it really depends on how much water you use. It takes a lot of practice to get the hang of how much water should be there. But as you practice more, then I just always say, just do a whole page. Just fill a whole page with these little light bulb vases and practice them and get a feel for it. There's no way I can give you a recipe necessarily. Now the hands, I considered just pulling the color in from the edge like I did with the vases. But I knew that wasn't going to be rich enough color because I wanted one to be more of a dark-skinned hand and one more of a medium. There's also a flesh marker in my set of markers, and you can use that one if you want even lighter skin, whatever kind of colors that you're looking for on the card that you're going to make. And I'm just painting the color in there. You would stamp the hand so that it kind of goes off the bottom or off to the side or something in whatever the panel is that you're going to put the hand with the flowers in it. And I'm putting a little darker color down there at the bottom. And then I'm going to add just a little tiny bit. The inside of the hand would have more shadow in it. So just putting a little extra color in there will darken it up. And it felt like it wasn't warm enough of a color, so I dropped in a little more of that lighter brown. Now, this is the rocket ship. Remember that I stamped the rocket ship there, which is kind of crazy. I drew a line at the bottom to straighten it out because the rocket ship has sort of a curved line down there, and this way it could stand on a table nicely. And then I'm just going to go over it with the water and the pigment that's on my block that I had left over from the hands. Why not use that color up? And I'm going to put on the left-hand side the darker shadows, and then a little bit under some of these areas that go across, so I sort of have bands going over there. I kind of don't mind that big balloon that's coming down from the top. It looks kind of cool. But where the shadows are on the left, they're going to be a cooler shadow, but on the right-hand side, they're going to get to be a warmer shadow as they get toward the light. So I use the lighter brown. There's a little more yellow on the right-hand side. Now this submarine, I'm going to turn into a glass base, and I'm going to put some blue and black on my block so I have a little bit of color available to myself. And then I'm going to take my brush and just make a horizontal line for the top of the water. And I'm going to put more color in the water than I am in the glass above. But I'm not going to totally fill it because I don't want it to look like it's blue water. I want it to look transparent. But I'm just adding a little bit of blue and then touching the green in a few areas because I don't want to totally mush it out. I want to be able to still see some of those lines, but I want them to look watery and mushy. Around a few spots, and there's no science to it, just pick a few places to put a little bit of darker blue, and not necessarily a darker blue color, but heavier pigment instead of all the water. And that will start to give a little bit of contrast to it and help it to look a little bit watery. But notice how it's uneven. I didn't worry about putting it all in the same place or making it symmetrical or anything. The area in the top, around the outside edges, if you look at a glass on a table and look at it against a white background sometime, then you'll notice where the glass is thicker, you get a little color around that outside edge. Sometimes it goes all the way to black, which is why I grabbed a little black to have on my palette to just drop into a few spots. It's a little dangerous, so do it on a practice and see what if you like it, what you think of it. And now I'm going to speed through the bouquets because this video was really more about making containers out of things that aren't containers. So I want to get you thinking about using your stamps in a totally different way. Turn them upside down, turn them different directions, and see what you can make out of them. And if you have some of these Art Impressions watercolor stamps, you can just add flowers to them. And what I like to do is make sort of a cloud of green when I'm making a bouquet. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. Bonnie from Art Impressions goes a different route lots of times with hers. And I love her technique. I love this technique. I play around with lots of different ways to do them. And I just kind of did some multi-stamping to get this big leafy thing to be sort of a cloud that's going to be the basis, the start of my bouquet. And then with some of the stamps, with flowers with stems, you can put some green down for the stem and whatever color for the flowers on the top. You can stamp them wet into wet. You can stamp them on it when it's dry. If you stamp when it's wet, you're going to get softer flowers and they're going to mush out a little bit. And if you stamp them when they're dry, you're going to get harder edges. And it really depends on what you like for your flowers. I like a mix. So usually I start stamping some of the flowers while it's still wet, and then others when I'm ready to have some hard edges, I start doing some stamping when everything's dry. So you can see that I'm getting more detail in these stamps than I did on the first ones. And then you can go back in and add some water to some of the flowers, loosen them up a little bit, make them feel more watercolory, and just make sort of groupings out of some of them. This particular one here in this hand on the right hand side looks kind of like lavender. I used a really tall skinny flower to do that one. You can take the green marker and start making some stems if you need to. Sometimes you'll need to join some of the flowers into the vase itself and you can draw right into it. And then I grabbed a little vine stamp, and this one I'm just using to add a little tiny bit of green and texture to each one of them. So I'm looking for areas that look kind of empty and blank. And for these large ones, if I want to have the color be all the way down there at the base of the floral arrangement, I can put a sticky note right at the top of the vase and block that off so I can do some heavy stamping right in that area. My finishing touch is to take some green marker, and then I did a little swirl of purple through it. So I get sort of this greenish purplish color. It just makes the green darker. I don't tend to like to use black when I'm doing the shadows in flowers because they don't look very natural. Then they start looking kind of weird with black in them. But with this kind of greenish purplish color, I start getting real contrast. You can see the difference when that really dark color just pops in there. Really kind of fun to be able to make realistic looking flower bouquets out of some simple stamps. The Art Impressions line of watercolor stamps, I love them because they're all sized to work together. And even though I'm using different sized vases, they work together to create different vases that I can use on cards. I can make scenes with them. You can even make a framed piece with one of these. So think about the stamps you have and which ones you can turn into a vase that are not meant to be one. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Click the like button if you did. Supplies are all listed in the doobly-doo and over on the blog. I will see you again in 2020. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.